Welcome to Courageous Leadership with Virginia Prodan, training you to lead with courage.
Hello, everyone. We are so happy to have you again here. We are so grateful for your faithfulness, for your desire to learn, to be a courageous leader, especially during this time in our country and even around the world. We are so happy that, in fact, this podcast started at your desire and your question and answers. As many of you read my memoir, Saving My Assassin, many of you ask, how can I be a courageous leader? How can I find the courageous leader in me? So I'm glad you are here. And I am glad that our podcast not only shares how to be a courageous leader from my own experience, not only in Romania, but here in America, but we also love to invite courageous leaders to our podcast so they can share with us their courageous leadership journey. And one of our guest for today is a courageous leader. His name is Lawrence Reed. He's the president Emeritus and Humphreys Family Senior Fellow and Ron Manor's Global Ambassador for Liberty. We all should be ambassadors for liberty. Thank you so very much, lady, for coming here. And if you want to introduce yourself to our audience and our viewers, please do it.
Okay, thank you very much, Virginia, for having me. I'm deeply honored, in part because since my high school days, I have been a great believer in courageous people in difficult places who put their lives and their reputations on the line to fight for liberty. And you certainly did that in Romania, and so did so many others. And much of that continent is free today because of courageous people who exhibited the skills and the talents and the courage of the leadership that you so often talk about.
Yes, that is so true. And today, America needs courageous leaders. Yes. America needs people in every area. And people sometimes they will say, "Oh, I don't have what you have. I'm not sure if I know how to do it." Several times, people I notice people when they contact me in different forms, they will say, "Well, I don't have the blueprint," but we all know that yes, we never had the blueprint. We have one step at a time. So, with that, would you share with us how you start your journey?
Okay. Way back in high school in the late 1960s, I had no knowledge of current events in the world. I was not focused on those things. But when the Soviet Union invaded Czechoslovakia in August of 1968, I was only 14, but I was riveted by what I saw on the television. And I felt terrible for the Czech people, and I wanted to do something. But of course, what can a 14-year-old in Western Pennsylvania in 1968 do to help people half a world away? Well, within a few days, I saw an advertisement in our local newspaper that said in a couple days there would be a demonstration in downtown Pittsburgh against the Soviet invasion. So I got a bus ticket and permission from my parents, and I went the 30 miles to Pittsburgh and joined in. We burned the Soviet flag in downtown Pittsburgh, and at that point I joined an organization called Young Americans for Freedom. And in those days, as soon as you joined that group, you got a good box of literature, including F.A. Hayek's famous book, The Road to Serfdom, Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, and some other literature to broaden your understanding of what it means to be for liberty, because it's not enough to simply oppose an invasion. You have to understand the morality, the economics, the political principles of what it means to live in a free society. and I devoted the rest of my life to promoting those things as a think tank president and for 7 years as a college professor.
That is wonderful what you said with the invasion, the Soviet invasion reminds me how our dictator used that for his advantage.
Yes,
He
he
was
did.
the only president in the Eastern Bloc who raised his voice and said that was wrong what the Russian did. And for many Westerners, they took that he was for freedom,
Yeah.
but that was not correct. He took advantage that people applauded him, invited him in different areas, and suppress us even more because he had outside support. So, and he tried to keep Romania as isolated as possible from Westerners. In fact, I call Romania under his regime a land of lies and a prison land.
Yes, I think
So
you're exactly right. And what the Soviets were doing to Czechoslovakia, he was doing to his own people.
yes, exactly. So we have to be very aware that the socialist system works on lies. They will present a wonderful picture, but behind the screen, it's going to be a horrendous isolation. People will be taken away from all the opportunities or possibility to raise their voice or to be able to communicate with others. Fake news and lies are part of socialists.
Yeah.
So for many Americans that they don't never experience socialism, it might sounds good, it might sounds wonderful, but it's not. I live under, and I know exactly. Also, I hope that American people will understand how clever the liberals and people using nice words like they use exactly the books of the socialist leaders that they use for hundreds of years in Russia, in Romania, in China, whatever.
Yes.
So I hope American people will open their eyes and mind to understand there is a difference between what those lovers of socialism are saying with their own words and what they will create for us.
Exactly. And you put it so well, Virginia, when you stress that socialists use lies. They are moral relativists at best, meaning that they don't regard truth as something that is firm and unchanging, let alone from a higher authority, from God Himself. Instead, they think that truth is whatever serves their agenda. And so they will lie and think nothing of it. They don't believe they're going to be accountable to any higher authority, that there is no afterlife where they may have to pay for their crimes. And they think that they're better than every other person and that they should use political power to force people to live the way they think they should live. I mean, socialism, by definition, is not voluntary. It never
Yes.
is. It can't be. In fact, if it was voluntary, I would say to socialists, well, why do you need to change the system? If it's voluntary, you can do that now. Go form a commune and of willing participants and see what you can do. But no, they can't do it voluntarily. They have to use the state to force people to do what they think they should do.
That is so correct. And not only that, they will create out of a government their own God. God will not be allowed to be praised. And people that will praise God, like Christians, will be persecuted. Because one of the things that socialist doesn't like is a loyal Christian to Christ. We are respectful to the government, no matter if it's a capitalist or communist. I lived under a socialist communist government, and I was respectful, but I spoke the truth to them. So when they present, even right now, these liberals freedom like a program from the government, they are building the way for us to accept socialism. Freedom is a gift from God. The Bible tells us you will know the truth, Jesus Christ, and the truth should make you free. Not the government, not your own skill, nothing else. So I hope people will realize the lies and what they are building. It's like giving you something that what they call for free to lock you up in a cage.
Yeah, I like to say that government has nothing to give anybody except what it first takes from somebody. And a government that's big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take away everything you've got.
Yeah, that is so true. And there are consequences. When you read in the Bible, you see in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, God is a God of justice. God is a God of love and has lots of patience. If we believe that we can turn our back to God and do whatever we want, have abortion, change the definition of marriage, do all kind of things and against God, and believe that America is going to be blessed, we are lying to ourselves. There is going to be.
Yeah, I think socialists realize, at least deep down, even if they won't publicly admit it, that if there is a God who believes in justice, then they, socialists, are in trouble, because a God who believes in justice will hold accountable people who use political force against their fellow men and women, people who deceive, people who lie, people who try to buy people off with other people's money. None of that stuff is Christian in any way. And socialists know that God is their competition. So that's why they don't want God. That's why they don't believe in God. God will hold them accountable, and they don't believe in that.
You're right, and also this is the reason why they don't like Christians, because Christians will do what is right and correct, because they believe that there is a God above them, that they will respond first to God and then to government or to your boss or to a human being. Also, we know that even if they have a temporary power, like dictator had a temporary power in my life in Romania, the Proverbs 21:30 tells us clear, there is no wisdom, no insight, no plan that can succeed against the Lord. Christ has eternal power. He might allow us to teach, a socialist or a dictator or people that will take away our freedom. God might allow us to bring us back to Him, but they don't have nothing else but a temporary power. And like you said, they will one day pay, if not here, one day in eternity will pay for their actions. So
and they
we
lie
know
about everything.
yes.
There's even a movement among socialists now to convince people that Jesus was a socialist. Well, about a year and a half ago, I wrote a book on this very subject. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, called "Was Jesus a Socialist?" And I point out in there that Jesus never advocated the concentration of earthly political power. He never advocated the forcible redistribution of wealth, or the central planning of an economy, or government ownership of the means of production. All these things that are what socialism is all about. In fact, when a man approached him and asked him to do a little redistributing, the man said to Jesus, Master, speak to my brother that he divideth the inheritance with me. In other words, use your power to redistribute the wealth here. I think I should get more. And Jesus did not say, oh, well, we'll look into it, or if you didn't get your share, we'll take it from the other guy. No, what he said was, Man, who made me a judge or divider over you? Take heed and beware of covetousness. And elsewhere in the New Testament, you find Jesus telling parables that have a very strong pro private property, pro freedom, pro individual responsibility message. How about the Good Samaritan? Why do we think of him as good? Because when he came upon a man in need, he didn't say to the man, "Oh, well, there must be a government program for you," or "Call your social worker, see you later." No, he helped the man of his own free will and with his own resources. If he had done any of those other things, we would not think of him today as the Good Samaritan. We would think of him as the good for nothing Samaritan. And on and on. Jesus drove money changers from the temple, but he didn't drive them from a bank or a marketplace. They were defiling the house of God. And if you showed up at a funeral with a kazoo and started playing Happy Days Are Here Again, you're going to be asked to leave. And that's essentially what Jesus was doing. But time and again, socialists today lie to make gullible Christians think that Jesus himself was a socialist. They say, well, he was for the poor. Well, yeah, he was. But he never said the way to solve problems of poverty is for the government to take from some and give to others, rob Peter to pay Paul. If he came back today and spoke to a large audience of people, and let's suppose he said, okay, tell me, what did you do for the poor? If you raised your hand and said, well, I voted for the politicians who said they would take care of that, I can assure you, Jesus would not be impressed. He would say, what? I told you to do something about that. I didn't tell you to vote to have some politician rob Peter to pay Paul and get the job done at twice the price.
Yeah, that is so true. And he also said that you will have poor with you all the time, which means there is a reason why he allowed people to be. Maybe some of them, they don't have or they never developed the skill to manage. Some of them might be for any other reason. I don't pretend to have the answer for that. But one of the reasons is not to wait for government, but
Yeah,
for us, for Christians, to be the hands of Christ and share them. And not only to be the hands of Christ, but to equip these people to become independent. And
that's right.
whatever we are, we can do that. And that's part of being courageous. And we also notice, I have been here for 33 years in America, and I notice gradually that the government tries as much as possible to develop the welfare system and hook people to this system in order to vote for them. But
Yes.
also I noticed another path that they developed to try to put as many obstacles in a path of churches and Christians to help people in need, poor people, because they want to have monopoly. They
Yeah.
want to be the only ones, so those people will depend on God. How would you um, encourage someone in this situation when their city or their state might have all kind of rules on all kind of things to block the Christians or like a church or individual Christians to help those homeless or poor people?
Well, several things. One, I would say don't vote for the politicians who create those obstacles. And if they're in office today, throw them out at the next election. And then, secondarily, find ways in which you can quietly be of assistance to those genuinely in need through no fault of their own. Do it anyway on your own or through your church or whatever way you can. Sometimes what the poor need the most are not material things, but rather good counseling, because sometimes their poverty stems from some behavioral problems, some bad habits, some poor choices. And the best thing you can do for them is to convince them in a lovingly way that they should avoid those behaviors and focus on self improvement. Another reason why we have poverty is that the government creates it and then pays people to stay poor. because, as you pointed out, they use it as a means to buy votes at the ballot box. Vote for me and I'll get you more. Vote for me and I'll do something for you. And I would just say to people, don't be suckers for this stuff. I mean, the politicians are using you when they say that. And if you believe that the politicians can solve poverty better than you and I and other private people can do through our churches and other associations, you're fooling yourself, because government just creates dependency from one generation to another. They cynically buy votes with the whole process, and they don't ask for accountability in return. You know, if I give to a charity and I find out that, oh, they're just subsidizing bad behavior, they're not changing anything, then I say, okay, I'm not gonna write you a check anymore. But of course, government doesn't hold anybody accountable. They just say, oh, you want money? You need money? Here's a check. And so that in many cases, they're simply subsidizing and continuing the bad behavior that created the poverty in the first place.
That is so correct. It comes to my mind. I'm reading a book, and in that book, the author is talking about several people that at a young age started a business, but not in a right way, and they got homeless. And there were people that reach out to them in that hard time in their lives and change the course of their lives. And
Yes.
now they are millionaires because someone realized this person made a mistake, but I can help them.
Yes.
Also, I remember at least two big actors that are sharing at the time they were homeless because they
Yeah.
couldn't find a job or anything, how someone reached out to them and helped them. In fact, there was one very famous comedian, an actor, that for every single movie, he made a contract that in that movie, at least 10 homeless will be hired for different roles, small roles. So it's amazing to me that those people never forgot how somebody reached out to them. They didn't look for the welfare system and everything, who, like you said, cuts off your wings,
Yeah.
but they accepted individual help, and they never forgot those people and encourage others to do the same.
Yes.
To look out.
In spite of all the things that government does to put obstacles in our way of helping people, and in spite of all the ways in which it creates poverty, we are still a very generous people in this country. I don't
Yes,
know that there's
yes.
ever been a time when somebody who really needed help went to the Salvation Army or the Red Cross or to a church and was told to get lost. I've never heard of that. I mean, that's so unbelievable and so rare if it happens at all. People still help when they sense that the person really needs it and that their predicament is not of their own making. And, you know, even liberals, socialists, progressives, whatever you want to call them, they kind of behave that same way in their personal lives. You know, let's imagine if you won $100,000 in the lottery, let's say. So all of a sudden you got a lot of money and you decide you want to help people with it. Would it even occur to you to write out a check to the Federal Department of Health and Human Services? No, nobody writes checks to the government except the ones they're forced to, called taxes. Nobody does it. Not even liberals do that. I mean, every year the U.S. government has a place in its budget for gifts, you know, but nobody gifts at anything. So if you want to help people, no matter where you are in the political spectrum, you know instinctively that the best way to do that is to give it to private people, private organizations, not some bureaucratic agency of government.
That is so true. And you mentioned that we as people, we are very generous. I will say watch the American people from Romania overseas, and I have been here for 33 years. I can say indeed that there is no people like American people.
Yeah.
Generous, kind, ready to help. And we brought Christ and freedom and prosperity to so many countries. And it's time for us to bring Christ and prosperity and help keep freedom back to America. That's what
right.
we need to do.
Everywhere in the world that you look, you find that the freer the country, or the more Christian a country, or if it's both, very free and very Christian, you'll find they are the biggest givers. They are the philanthropists. The socialist countries of the world are always the ones who are begging for the rest of the world to give them something, because they don't create wealth in the first place. They manufacture poverty, and then the free countries of the world have to bail them out.
Yeah, you are so correct. Well, Larry, thank you so very much for coming to our podcast, for sharing your values. I hope our audience, our viewers will take to heart and will do what is right, because we need to be courageous leaders where God placed us. And surely we're going to invite you again because you have so much to offer.
You're very kind, Virginia. Thank you so much, and best wishes for the holidays. And a very happy new year. And to your listeners, I want to say thank you for listening to Virginia and her message of freedom, because it's just so important.
Thank you.
If you want to know more about Virginia Prodan, her coaching program, buy her book, Saving My Assassin, or invite Virginia to speak at your events, visit virginiaprodanbooks.com.